This is not politics. Please don't forget. I'm just practicing to be a poet. Not qualified as yet, but have no fear. I'm gonna get there. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectation. Neither are you in to live up to mine. I don't owe no one, no obligation. No one owes me none, so everything is fine, fine. I said I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. I am that I am, I am, I am, I am. Serious business. There is a time for everything, and for everything there is a season. So man and man must reason. So I think it's prime time that we address some more issues. Simple information.
Yes, indeed, folks. And once you hear that, it's time for Talking Points. My name's Sheldon Scott. I'll be with you up until the 10 o'clock hour.
Poetic line. Trick us with campaign promises. We won't stay at ease. That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain. But you
for the most dangerous program on the island of Grenada.
Remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask.
And quickly becoming one of the most listened, one of the most viewed programs out of the Tri-Island state.
The rightful thing.
They know we actually do have a Tri-Island state. It's the state of Grenada with the wards of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. But I know we just say the Tri-Island state. Nice. Let me say a special good night to the listeners out there in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Know that you all are locked in.
Is what everybody say. Cell phone ring, man, and
all of the other listeners who are locked in via YouTube, all of you locked in via Facebook.
Even green get yellow.
Hope that you all have a very special night tonight. Again, just in case I didn't say it, my name is Sheldon Scott.
That's the way it is. We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain.
And as usual, we've got a lot to speak about, huh? The campaign promises and so.
You know what you have.
Yeah, we're coming up to budget 2023. Yeah, we're in 2022, so the budget they're doing is for 2023. Nice. Looking forward to hear some new ideas and some initiatives and so on. Yeah, give them ideas last night, We told them about the one where it might be better. Instead of going and buy buses to compete with the bus drivers and that kind of thing, to use a ferry service between St. Patrick and the south of the island. And the reason, continue to say that, is this. If you use a bus, you're competing with the bus drivers for the same audience, the same clientele that they wanted, people who have to take the bus. Whereas if you do the ferry service, it's the people who otherwise may have driven down to the town can now, instead of going through that, they could use the ferry. And you never know. According to the size and scale, you might even do a ferry that's able to take vehicles. So you may be able to take the vehicles and bring vehicles down to the south of the island instead of people having to drive down. Okay, it might cost them less actually to pay for the ferry just to have the vehicle board and bring it down to the south of the island. All right, and then they down to the south, they drive about, they do what they have to do, and they come back up. My thing was provide parking, they pay for the parking, that kind of thing. We're giving them ideas. We ain't holding everything for yourself, man. We're giving them ideas and things too. You understand? Nice.
I remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask, you sure?
Also reminding each and every one of you to be careful on the nation's road. We've been having rain all day today.
Your rightful thinking.
So be very careful on the nation's roads. Seeing a little bit of gravel and different things from different areas scattered into the roadway. So you have to be careful, especially when you're taking a blind corner.
Yellow, yellow, all the way is
reduce your speed.
Cell phone ring, man answering. Yellow, yellow, no hello. Teeth get yellow, house get yellow, bus get yellow, man get yellow, even green get yellow, and so says 11-4. When you trick us with campaign.
So again, a special good night to all of you joining us. We're just letting the numbers build up a bit.
We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you now refrain. Old school parables say you know what you have, but you don't know what you go get. So cherish what you have to diminish regret. But what on earth lasts forever? Not even things created by the great Jehovah. So the green grass ceased to grow to allow the yellow vibes to flow. But boy, one song I sing, one bell I ring. If we didn't know, we never know yellow would have treated us so. When you trick,
I know a lot of people are actually singing that already, huh?
tease.
Yeah, I've been hearing people speaking and so. And you see, the thing is, a lot of people, they meet you one-on-one. So I've been getting a lot of calls, but I've been getting calls one-on-one. They're not going to call onto the program. Many of the people are people that still are employed with the government of Grenada, and it says a lot. Under the new National Party, you had many people who were employed by the government of Grenada, some temporary, some permanent, etc., who called radio programs and called TV programs and so, and expressed themselves against the government. Some would be in praise of the government, some they would call and they were talking against the government because not everybody was supportive of the new National Party administration. And they felt comfortable enough and they felt free enough to be able to do that. So they would call different television programs, they would call radio programs, you would hear their voices. You know, some were in the teaching service, some worked in the health sector, different areas. They would call and they would say different things. They would call and they would make different points in relation to different issues and that sort of thing. And with all of that happening, you didn't hear about them being fired because you used to call a radio program so they fire you. Or you used to be on a TV program so they fire you. You were not hearing that, innit? They felt free and comfortable enough to call. And if they want to curse the government, they curse the government. But now, you have a state of fear in Grenada where people are afraid to speak. So the moment you speak out, you become public enemy number 1. And if you're not careful, public enemy number 2, 3, 4, and 5 at the same time. So many people are afraid to speak out publicly. They are afraid to call, and not just this program, any program. They're afraid to call and speak out. They're the brave ones. The ones who, I couldn't care less, and they would call. But there are many who meet you personally and they say, but Shalon, I want to call, But if I call, the little contract that I have, they will send me home. Or they may not renew the contract coming to an end, they may not renew the contract. There are many of them who have been saying that to me, who have been seeing me, and have been mentioning that they are afraid to speak out because they know that there are serious consequences. When you have situations where people, because of their political alignment, are being told that, hey, we come in for that job just now, all you have to go home by December. And people who may have time on their contract still, and are being told, all you have to go home just now. Being threatened. And remember, some of these were people who were being threatened even before the general election. Some of these are people who have families that they have to take care of. They have elderly parents or grandparents who they help with the medication and so. And these people have found themselves in a situation now that the lifeline that they have by the employment that they obtained during the reign of the new National Party is being threatened by people with no other intention. They don't intend to do it better. They don't intend to improve whatever area of work it is that they're threatening people they're going home from. They don't intend to improve in that area. They don't intend to do better than that person has been doing in that area. Their sole intention is to try to teach a lesson to that individual that I could come in and I can take your employment. I can take your source of income. We don't care how good you was doing it. We don't care nothing about that. The bottom line is we used to see you going to an NP rally. Or we used to see the MP always passing by you, the NNP MP. Or we hear that your brother is a key activist of the New National Party. Or you're friends with Sheldon Scott. So all of a sudden their persona non grata is like it have two different Grenaders. One Grenada for the party in power and one Grenada for everybody else. So that only them supposed to be working. So you're hearing people being told out there in the communities. And you see, when I say there's a lack of leadership, there's a lack of leadership because whereas the political leader and the leadership of the party should be saying to their rank and file and their members, don't do that publicly, coming out. They like Facebook. Go on Facebook and do it. They like to go in front of cameras. Go in front of camera and say to your members, now is the time for unity. Now is the time to come together. Now is the time for all of us to work together to build Grenada. You said you're going to move Grenada forward. I know if you're trying to jam it up closer to St. Vincent, but you said you're going to move Grenada forward. Maybe you want it closer to Carriacou and Petit Martinique. But you said you're going to move Grenada forward. Is this moving Grenada forward? When you have a situation like what has taken place in St. John, and I mentioned it last night. Look at the state of the playing fields in St. John now, and look at what was taking place under the last contractor. And let me ask a question. The contractor now, the person who claims to be the contractor now, the individual or the company that is handling the playing fields that looking chang all over St. John right now, does that person have a contract? Is there a contract that exists for that individual or company? Have they been contracted? What is the date of that contract if they have been contracted? Because you've terminated the contract of the individual company that was doing the job before. That was doing the playing field in Gove and that was doing other playing fields. You've terminated the contract of that entity. And now you have another entity that is doing the same job, but not doing the same job. In other words, they're doing the quote-unquote upkeep of the playing field, but it is not up to the quality and standard of what was done before. So I'm asking you, and I know my good friends up in St. John, they'll be listening, so they can answer. Is there existing a contract for the new, and people who are working along with that contractor find out here because you might very well find yourself at the end of this month or next month without any money, unless they're going to pay you from their own pocket. But is there a contract existing for said individuals? Do they have a contract to do the playing fields in St. John? And how come? Because I remember there was a talk about all of the contractors being given letters of termination of the services and so, and then that was withdrawn. But that doesn't seem to be the case for St. John. It does not seem to be the case for St. John. Because in St. John, you have a different contractor. Now, people can message me. They can tell me if the same obtains for playing fields in St. Patrick or playing fields in different parts of St. Andrew and playing fields for different parts of St. David and St. George and Carriacou, Petit Mat. People can tell me if the same obtains there, if the contractors have been changed. Because I remember there was this debacle about letters being sent out and contractors being told that the services basically are no longer required. And then you had the attempt to throw the whole thing onto the PS, but I know how PSs operate. The general public might not know how a PS operate, but the PS can't operate without the directive from the minister. So the PS, you're trying to say that the PS take on their own and send home all these people? At a point in time, remember, it is a point in time when you're going into the sporting season. It's a point in time when you're going into football and schools football and cricket, and you're going into all these things. So you need to have the playing fields upkept. You need to have them properly taken care of. Because you're going into the season, you can't let them become overgrown, and then there's a problem to get them up to the standard that you need them when the time comes, and people injuring themselves and all that kind of thing. But that wasn't understood because, again, as I said, there's a lack of leadership within the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. For them to study that instead, they want to run on radio stations in Carriacou and talk about who going to jail and who going to jail. All you should go to jail for what you are doing there. That's what should happen. About who will go to jail and who this and who that and that kind of thing. Well, if ministers are the ones that are deciding who going to jail, well, we have fallen a far way down in relation to democracy in this country. Because if we've gotten to the stage now that, number one, it seems as though people are afraid to, not seems as though people are afraid to speak publicly, one-on-one, they'll tell you, but they're afraid. There's an atmosphere of fear. It's like you're back in the darkest days of the revolution or something, when people had to be afraid to speak because you're considered a counter, and then you end up either at Bishop's College, as they used to call Richmond Hill Prison, or if you were a certain long-haired quality, you ended up down in Hope Vale. And as the Rastas then called it, the concentration camp in Hope Vale. That's what they called it. I ain't call it so. That's what the people who were in it called it. So you either ended up in Hope Vale, or you ended up in Bishop's College, or you ended up for a session up at the fort. That's what was happening. And now, it seems as though people have to be afraid to speak, because if you speak now, you're considered a counter. So your son or your daughter, who may be looking for a scholarship, the moment they realize that there's any line that they can draw directly from the new National Party to that child, is a problem. The people who have applied for houses, the houses that are shining up there in La Sagesse, the houses up in St. Patrick, the people who have applied for those houses, afraid to speak. And in St. Mark, they're afraid to speak, because if they speak out and their name is down for one of those houses, they know pretty well that the likelihood of them getting one of those houses is next to nil. If they find out that you are related too closely to anybody who was or is in the NNP right now, or that you were the voice that used to call that radio program and say all kind of thing, or you were the person that used to put up different posts on the internet, you could kiss your chances of getting one of those houses. Mwah, bye-bye. You ain't gain it. That is the state of fear and the atmosphere of fear that they have created in Grenada since June. That you have to be scared to speak. And they have gone even further with it. And again, it shows a lack of leadership. When the leadership of that political organization, when the leadership of that cabinet of ministers, when the leadership, including the cabinet of ministers, does not come out and speak against certain behaviors. When your leader of the opposition, former prime minister, most successful politician in the history of the Caribbean. Let me say that again, because they don't like to hear that. Many of them don't like to hear that. Most successful politician in the history of the Caribbean, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. How many other politicians you know? As General Secretary of the party in 1984, out of the 15 seats, they were able to guide the party to 14. And then on 3 occasions afterwards, twice from government, once from opposition, and back-to-back, have been able to secure all the seats in a general election. plus bring your country out of the devastation of Hurricanes Ivan and Emily, and uplift the standard of living of all your people. The most successful politician in the history of the Caribbean, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. They could say what they want about legacy. You cannot take that legacy away. 300 years from now, they're going to be writing books and still speaking about Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. While some of the same people who sit down in Parliament right now will end up as a footnote in history. Their political careers will only be mentioned in the terms of a footnote. That the other person was in Parliament between then to then. But one more you could say about them. Yeah, you win a seat, or you was appointed to the Senate and he was there between that and that. But you can't point to nothing and say, well, they did that. You can't point to anything and say that person was successful in doing that for the country and Grenada benefited because that person was able to do that. That person was part of the team that gave us a national athletic stadium that ended up rated #1. That person was part of reviving sports in Grenada or getting different sporting organizations up to the level that they were. They can't come back and say that, but 10 years from now, 20, 50, 100 years from now, when the history of Grenada is being reviewed, you will always hear Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell's name being called in a positive light. Who don't like it, that's their business. So when he, in his private capacity, is having a function for his beloved mother, who has become a centenarian, and then certain people walk inside there to attempt to disrespect him because you know what they want? They thought they would come in there and somebody would lash them. But the thing is, they want to give the impression that they come and they lime and all kind of thing. They didn't even get to spend 10 minutes because they joined the line for food and people run them. But they come to see who they, because they want, like if somebody, they want to create that atmosphere of fear. Like if you're living in Nazi Germany and the SS is going around picking up people. Or if you was in Haiti during the thing of Papa Doc and the Tuntun Makut going around to see if you're saying anything wrong against Papa Doc. That is how they operating. And talking about who ducking and who, nobody wasn't ducking them. Them nobody's afraid. All them have is mouth, nothing else. But they have been doing that kind of thing, and the leadership of their party, the leadership of their organization has not called them out on it. In the man's private capacity, yes, it was a public activity, but in his private capacity, but they didn't come there to wish anybody a happy birthday or long life. They said clearly they came there because they wanted to see who they. So why? So they could victimize them. And you telling me after they say that, their political organization ain't come out and distance themselves from that kind of thing. Up to this day, the 23rd day of November, their political organization has not come out and distanced themselves from that sort of behavior. So no wonder people have to be afraid of how they speak and so. Well, some of us, but me ain't afraid of speaking. Nothing they could do me. Nothing. So I'm speaking. Because as Grenadians, we all have the right to speak on issues. We had the right to speak when NNP was here, and the right has not been taken away. But some of you are afraid to come out and speak right now. I understand. I ain't bothering with phone line and this kind of thing. When we fix it, we fix it. But I know that many of you, right? Many of you would like to contribute, but you're afraid. Don't worry, the time will come. The time will come. As it is right now, I know you feel like you're in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s. You're afraid to speak. Or like you're in one of the Soviet era countries. Like you're back in Romania during the 1970s, early 1980s and those kind of countries where you had to be afraid to speak. I know that many of you feel like that. But there's a certain point which you have to break that and come out and expose what they are doing and what they have attempted to do. You can't be afraid to speak all the time. So when you hear about things like what is taking place with the playing fields in St. John's, don't be afraid to come out and talk about it. When you hear about what is taking place with the National Lottery Authority, the raid that is taking place on the National Lottery Authority, so they're grabbing as much as they could grab out of the National Lottery Authority to do things that generally are not in line with what funds in the National Lottery Authority have been used for in the past. They're generally not in line with that. And it's just wild. Spend. Because they know that they get a lot of money coming into the National Lottery Authority on a weekly basis. Because let's face it, people play the pick 3, they pay the cash 4, they play away, they Super 6 and the Lotto. Plus they buy the scratch cards and that sort of thing. People do participate. So they know they have a significant amount of income that's going to continue coming there. But it is not an infinite amount of money. It is not. It's not an infinite amount of money that's coming into the National Lottery Authority. So you still have to be careful in how you're spending it. And remember, the focus should be on youth, sports, and community development. Youth, sports, culture, and community development. And if it doesn't fall in line with one of those areas, then you have to find another source of funding. But they've created this atmosphere of fear, so people are supposed to be afraid to talk about it. Because if they talk about that, then they're going to find some way to shut you up. That's what they've been doing. You think it's one threat, one phone call, one kind of thing I get between starting last week and now? You think it has been one attempt? They've attempted to hack into our computer systems. Who knows if they're successful or not, but they've attempted to hack into the computer systems. They've also attempted to shut down on several occasions, including yesterday again. The Facebook page, reporting the Facebook page. They've been reporting the Facebook page, attempting to get rid of the Talking Points Facebook page. They have attempted to get rid of our YouTube page. They've tried as many tactics in the book as they can to either disrupt the host or disrupt the program, because they do not want sensible information coming out to you. They do not want you to be hearing what they are doing wrong or possibly doing wrong, or the allegations that are out there, because they don't want to come and answer them. So each week, when you sit on a Tuesday waiting for a post, even if you want to say, well, we're changing post cabinet from a Tuesday and we're putting it on a Friday. Even if they want to take out post cabinet and say we're doing one every 2 weeks, at least have the common decency and courtesy to say to the Grenadian people, we're going to do it every 2 weeks. Or once a month, we're going to have this big forum. You're bringing all the ministers and they're going to speak. Yes, you have said, and part of your campaign promise was that you're going to be having town hall meetings and the ministers are going to go out to the communities and have a meeting with the people and speak directly to them. In other words, you realize they've been copying word for word most of what the revolution used to do, because that's what the revolution used to do. They used to go into different communities and you would have the Minister of Finance and you have other ministers, and the then Prime Minister would come and people were allowed to ask different questions, but you know you had to be careful because you could end up in the clink if you ask the wrong kind of question or if you make the wrong kind of accusation. You might leave there, you might go home, and within a week you might find yourself at Bishop's College. But people were given the opportunity to ask questions. People were given the opportunity to interact during the revolution. So they took that model and they're using that now. But that's nothing new. Because whether it was face-to-face, whether it was different types of names that it carried at different times, the New National Party has always done that. So they've always had meetings in different constituencies where people have been able to come and ask questions about what is going on in their constituency and so on. And you had different ministers coming. Sometimes the main person that would come was the prime minister, the representative of that constituency, and if they know that there's some major works to be done or some major issues in an area, for instance, agriculture or infrastructure or whatever it is, then you get the particular minister to come to that community and they would speak and interact. And it would take place at different schools. It's online. They can't say we're lying. It's online. If you check YouTube, you check Facebook, those meetings are there. So it's nothing new that, oh, we going out and we meeting the people. Yeah, NNP used to do that too. But NNP used to make sure that there was post-cabinet press briefing and that you had a minister there. And that if there wasn't going to be a post-cabinet press briefing and somebody forget to send the message the night, at least first thing in the morning, the media would be informed, hey, no post-cabinet press briefing taking place today. Right? You would get a message saying that. But it just shows the difference in respecting the media, in respecting you, the Grenadian people, and understanding the responsibility to report to you, to speak to you, to let you know what your government has done for you. Because they make all kind of talk about, oh, he talk about this person going Egypt and that person going Egypt. Okay, I make all kind of talk about it. Where's the press release saying what Grenada has gained from the delegation that went? I know they're back here. They could pass and cuss and throw word as much as they want. They could make as much talk as they want. The reality is that as far as I'm concerned, what was done is wrong. And if they don't like that, their face is their own. But where's the release now that they've come back? Where's the release now that says Grenada is getting $10 million under this program? Because, hey, remember, it's a Grenadian in charge of this thing, you know. Is a Grenadian in charge of this thing. And it's not that they're going to show any bias or so, but come on, man. You go to a climate change meeting and you come back with your hands swinging, and the person in charge of the whole thing was the minister that held the portfolio that you presently hold before you, that knows all the plans and strategies that they had in place. The climate resilient city, St. George being a climate resilient city, and so looking at the issues, and if you've been passing on the Carenage in the past month or 6 weeks, you realize every now and again, you now have the water lapping over the Carenage. And while people may say, but that's always been an issue, you realize now that some reconstruction work has to be done on the Carenage, the sidewalk around the Carenage, either to raise the height of the road or to mitigate against the possibility that the Carenage could be inundated at any point in time. That you have a high tide and you have a full moon at the same time, and you probably have a weather system passing outside that increases the height of the water by a couple inches. So that you have to look at all of these things. So how much money? Let me ask. I ain't bothering with how much money was spent to send. How much government pay and how much this agency pay and that agency pay. How much money they came back with? How much money are we guaranteed? Or are we not supposed to know that? Is that not our business? Because remember, post-cabinet is now on a need-to-know basis, it seems. So probably we don't need to know. But what is it now that Grenada has gained out of this? There's money there. Billions of dollars under climate change. Billions of dollars. You just have to know how to go after it. You have to understand what you do. Now, I think they are a competent team of people that went generally. Mr. Leon Charles and Dr. Linus Spencer Thomas. Extremely intelligent and knowledgeable in relation to the field. I know that there were several other people. I know the president of the Senate was part of the team. Not the same team that went at that time, but part of a team that went previously. That's Dr. Decima Williams, extremely knowledgeable in relation to that area. No one could question why such an individual would attend such a conference. Years of experience in the field and a keen perspective on the issues. But with all of that, about who go and who was here, because remember, you had the government release that said, I think about 10 or 6 or whatever it was, and then you had how many more in another piece of information that came out talking about 6 people that joined virtually. And very competent people, who could have gone in place of an advisor. If you're an advisor, you could advise via Zoom. You could advise via WhatsApp. You could advise via Facebook Live. You could advise over so many different platforms. Why did they not send a person who was working in the field and would be able to negotiate and talk and say, hey, let's listen. We want to switch over from fossil fuels into more clean energy in Grenada. And as such, we're looking at geothermal. And we'd like to get some money to go and assist with that. So that when they come back, they could say, hey, here's what. We get $5 million dice to start the process of using geothermal energy. We know at the base of Mount St. Catherine, there are several areas with the proper geothermal range that we'd be able to use to generate this amount of kilowatts of power on behalf of the people of Grenada without having to use fossil fuels. And then you have another program where you're going to start utilizing, for instance. It has always been my belief that the roof of most government buildings should be solar panels. Because if every school in Grenada has solar panels on the roof, and the medical centers and facilities and so on, and the police facilities and so on, right? Even the ministerial complex. If all of the government facilities, even if we were just looking at schools, had solar panels on them, it will reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we have to use. And don't say, well, you're only saying that now when the outer office know. If you know me and you've interacted with me and you've spoken to me, this is nothing new that I'm saying. This is something that I have expressed on several occasions. Places like the youth center, the whole roof should be solar panels as far as I'm concerned. And everybody should be doing their part, encouraging, making sure that it is as cheap as possible for private entities, businesses, which is what the NNP administration did through the GIDC, offering incentives together with the climate initiatives so that businesses could access loans through the GIDC and the GDB and so to be able to install their solar panels and so and reduce the amount of electricity that is generated via fossil fuels because we are so latched on to having to wait for the 2 generators and the generators down in Queen's Park to use fossil fuel and generate electricity. We are beholden to the price of fuel on the world market. So when the price of fuel goes up on the world market, we end up with a situation here in Grenada where the price of electricity goes up. And people have been seeing the price of electricity going up. And as long as the conflict continues between Russia and Ukraine, and now you're going into the winter season, when the European countries use more fuel than normal, and then you have that issue between Russia and Ukraine, so you know that the price of fuel is going to go up. And recently we saw a little increase in the price of gasoline. Now the price of diesel is actually higher than the price of gasoline, which if I remember correctly used to be the other way around. Diesel always used to be cheaper than gasoline, if I could remember correctly. Now I realize that the price of diesel is more than the price of gasoline for whatever reason. And no, I am not blaming the government, because the first thing, as soon as you say something and they consider it negative, is, oh, he cussing the government and he blaming the government. Why they didn't fix it? No. I am saying that the government has a responsibility to find ways to address it. And here are some of the ways that they can address it. Because this is what the last administration was doing. And if people were able to zone in and listen through all the noise that the then opposition was making when the New National Party was inside in relation to Grenlec, the direction that Grenlec should be going and what ought to be taking place, they would have heard at that point in time everything I'm saying now. So it's not new that the New National Party was saying that we need to go into things like solar power and geothermal. That there has already been a feasibility study done under the New National Party administration funded by the government of New Zealand in relation to the potential for geothermal energy in Grenada. Geothermal meaning that you're taking the heat out of the ground, basically, and you're converting that into electricity. And it was found that at the base of Mount St. Catherine in several areas and so on. The thing is that some of the areas are in private property and so. But that in those different areas, that there is a possibility of generating a significant amount of geothermal energy for Grenada. So we no longer have to be buying a set of fuel so that your price of electricity could go down. Because we always speak about, oh, no manufacturing, a set of fruits drop. All of a sudden, people stop talking about fruits dropping. Yeah, fruits have been dropping and they're still dropping. They were dropping before. Nobody's saying under the NNP the fruits wasn't dropping. They were dropping before and they're dropping now. But in order for a factory to operate in Grenada and operate at the level where they are able to reasonably produce an item and cost that item so that they don't overdo it, that people can't purchase it, the price of electricity has to go down, which is why when the law was changed in relation to Grenlec, one of the things that triggered the company deciding that they no longer want to hold on to Grenlec was giving private businesses and private individuals the opportunity to generate their own electricity. Because what existed before was that you buy your solar panels and you set up all your thing, you generating electricity, and then Grenlec comes and say, no. According to this law, we are the only people could produce electricity in Grenada. So, you producing, but they put a meter now, they put 2 meters. So they put a meter where you produce and you send all your electricity back into their network. And then they have a meter where they feed electricity back into your network. So you're still using off of their grid. And then they work out the difference because they pay you for what you are producing and you pay them for what you're taking. But at the end of the day, with that system, it was taking years for people to be able to pay off for what they put up as solar panels. And that's why much people wasn't really interested in the solar panels to produce electricity. And this is something that was addressed by the law that was changed by the New National Party. But there was a clause that existed within the law that was there before, the agreement, not the law, but the agreement between Grenlec and WRB that allowed WRB, if they wanted to or they thought that what was being done was unfavorable, to force a buyback clause that the government would have to buy the company. And they did that. And the New National Party was able to secure the company on behalf of Grenadians. You own it on behalf of Grenadians. But you see, so much noise was being made. Who was their lawyer? Their local lawyer. They had international lawyers, they had a local lawyer. Yeah? As the workers down there in Grenlec, who was their lawyer? Because you had so much noise being made that what I'm speaking about now, sounding new, because people were not listening to it before, because they were listening to the noise. Oh, where they find the money and buy back Grenlec? Well, listen, you're in office now. So tell the Grenadian people where the money was found to buy back Grenlec in the same way that you could tell people who owns the Grenada Postal Corporation. You have all the information right now. You go ahead and tell the Grenadian people that. Tell the Grenadian people if you think anything was done wrong. You've got all the information at your fingertips. You can say where the money was sourced from to buy Grenlec. But they won't do that. Because they want to continue this narrative of wrong things were being done. And then they're hiding from you. How much weeks? When was the last time you had a post cabinet? About 3-4 weeks ago? So you have climate change conference. You don't think that a press conference could have been had and that the Honorable Minister and other members of the delegation could have come onto that press conference and reported to the Grenadian people that, hey, we went to that conference, this is what we secured for Grenada. Make me look small. Come out and say, this is what we were able to secure for Grenada with the high-level delegation that we went with. Instead of that, no, just...
Please don't forget, I'm just practicing to be a poet. Not qualified as yet, but have no fear. I'm gonna get there. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectation. Neither are you in to live up.
Yeah, we're quickly coming up to the end of the first hour of tonight's program.
I don't owe no one, no obligation. No one owes me none, so everything is fine.
Folks, you all will excuse me because I can't see the information coming up on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're fine and not shouting you all out, it's because I can't see the information in real time. But I'll say a general good night to each and every one of you.
Business. There is a time for everything, and for everything there is a season. So man and man must reason. So I think.
So yeah, those are you that with the contractor in St. John. Oliver, let me know if at the end of the month everything turned out nice.
It's fine. While I take you down a poetic line. Trick us with campaign promises.
I see that seed payments are being made past the people collecting their seed payments at different locations. That's wonderful.
But you now refrain. I remember you say Liberation Day, and I ask, you sure is that you want to say? Cause you sounded so good to believe. And deception is a powerful thing when you lose your rightful thinking. So we voted for the bling. But
I know that many people have already collected their pension. We know that other people are now going into the pension secretariat. And so remember, this is only part of the payment. Because some people giving you the impression that there's all the money that had to be paid for the 4.1. No. There's a lot more money. Because as was mentioned on another program today, and it is correct, the interest payments, which are significant as well, because interest payments is not $10 and a $20 here, You're talking thousands of dollars in different instances again, in relation to the interest payments from the time of the judgment to now as well. Then you're also speaking about adding these people now onto the monthly pension bill. Because every month, remember, government has to pay your pension bill, and they have to pay their wage bill, and then they have to make their NIS contributions. And you're adding here close to $500,000 onto your pension bill. And then there's the intention now of adding on more onto the wage bill. And I know I ain't talking about the couple $1,000s per month due to what they added on to their own salary as the wage bill. I'm speaking about they have said that, and that's the campaign promise that is there. That's the campaign promise that they are going to regularize, make permanent people within the public service, because on several occasions, and you know what? Monday is going to be Clips Monday. We're going to play some clips Monday. We're going to have a good time. We're going to discuss. Yeah, we're going to play some clips on Monday. Because I'll tell you something, sometimes, and many people don't realize that, sometimes it takes listening to a 2 or 3 hour program just to get a 30-second clip. Yeah, because sometimes you skip, and when you skip the important part. So you have to sit, listen, and pay attention. So sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours, and if you're listening to multiple programs, you're speaking about sometime a whole day. All you're doing is just sitting and you're listening. And then you stop and you go back to get that piece. But there are several instances of the Prime Minister saying during the election campaign that it is illegal to have people on contract. And I'm paraphrasing here. Next thing they want to sue and say, it's not I say. I'm paraphrasing. That he was saying it is illegal to have people on contract. And then the nurses could tell us differently if they've gotten permanent since then. Many of the teachers, they can tell us if since then they got permanent. Or they can tell us, because it says illegal. So if you still get a contract, it means that something definitely is wrong. If you get a contract, it means that something wrong. Because you're saying it illegal, which means that he would be encouraging his government to continue something which he personally believes, and most likely his organization believes is illegal, and they're continuing to do it. So if somebody in the category of people who he says it's illegal to give the contract decides that they're going to take the government to court now to be installed permanently, they have the Prime Minister on record giving his legal perspective on the issue of contract work for positions where there should be permanent people, saying that it is wrong legally to do that. They have grounds, eh? Nice, yeah, because again, campaign promises.
We've waited in vain, hoping you'll ease the strain, but you're not refrain. You remember in the Bible, God had a plan for Jonah to restore Nineveh. But who will restore Grenada? Is it the same Jonah? Lots of doubt, so I'm running up my mouth. And I ain't counting no chicken before the hatch. Politicians sometimes form a crooked batch. After they get the vote, they not sing one note. But here comes Fort Judy and Nancy Payne with $1 million house and brand new car on the scene, while our hungry bellies still grow.
I said, don't be upset with the different MPs. I know I like to be straight on things. Don't be upset with the different MPs if you see they get a little bad ride and thing. Don't upset with them. Because remember, they will pay in the credit union for it. They will be paying the bank and thing for it. So you see them with the look a bad ride and thing. You can't be upset with them for it. If they pass you with the windows up, and they passing you straight, and they ain't stopping, they ain't blowing, they ain't slowing, well, we're human beings. You could feel how you want to feel about that. But don't upset if you see them get, because I know a few of them getting a look a bad ride, coming in a little while, and some people might watch it and want to talk about it and upset. Nah, it's they who paying for it. They who pay, not you. They paying for it. You understand? They get 100% duty-free concession. If I had 100% duty-free concession and have the ability to buy a vehicle, I would buy a vehicle. Same, I'm sure most of you would. If you had the financial ability to buy a nice vehicle and you had 100% duty-free concession, you'd buy it. So I wouldn't say be upset with them. But you see, unlike the others, we like to be fair here. We like to be fair. So I'm saying, yeah, you see them with the look bad, right, and thing, don't hurt your head over that one. Nice? Right. Once they're doing what they're supposed to do, because the problem for me is not the bad ride and thing, it's the fact that you have given yourself transportation allowance when you don't own transportation. In several instances there. Several of them are receiving transportation allowance and they do not own transportation. As far as I know, and they could tell me if I'm wrong, if you're within the public service, in order to receive the transportation allowance or the traveling allowance or so, generally you're supposed to own a vehicle. You may be a traveling officer, but you do not receive the traveling allowance, at least during the New National Party time when I was around, that was how it was, because even I was party to that I did not have a vehicle, so I was not given a traveling allowance. When I got a vehicle, then I started receiving a traveling allowance. And I know of many other people, and I'm not even speaking about the ministerial level here, I'm speaking about other traveling officers within the public service at that time who were not given a traveling allowance unless they had a vehicle. And what some people were doing was using part of the traveling allowance towards the payment for the vehicle and that kind of thing, because they're using the vehicle to do the job. And then you say, okay, 2,000 plus for a driver. I thought that drivers, because even again, as a senator, I had to ask fellas to help drive, because at the point in time I didn't used to drive. So I had to ask guys to help me, because as a senator at that point in time, we were not given drivers. Yeah, you may have seen somebody driving the vehicle for me at the point in time, but we were not given drivers by the government. MPs, as in parliamentary representatives, got their drivers. But the senators didn't have drivers. You didn't used to see Senator Garway with a driver or Senator Simon Steele with a driver and so on. You didn't get drivers. Yeah, you could ask a friend to help you out if you don't drive, or a relative to help you out if you don't drive, but you did not receive a driver, right? But the MPs, the parliamentary representatives, they had drivers. Now I realize they give everybody this money and say that's for a driver and that kind of thing. When I thought, if I check under the budget document, there is a section there for the driver that's attached to the minister, or in some cases driver/security that's attached to individual ministers in ministry. If I check the budget document, I'm pretty sure that there's an allocation there for that, but now you're hearing of a separate allocation. So is this an allocation that's going to cover the senators so that now they can hire a driver and then if that's the case, what is the thinking behind that? That's why I said when it's looking at the increase in salary that these individuals have gotten, is it a situation that some proper assessment was done? And what kind of assessment could have been done in under 2 months to decide that is too little bit of money for a government minister to receive? And then for the then for the prime minister to come out and say that is to avoid people thieving. So what, you know something about your team that we don't know? That you had to put $2,000 on top of it so that they can't go and thief? You know something about them we don't know? Because that's what I wonder you saying that, okay, you increase their salary, so you're paying them properly so that they wouldn't find themselves doing wrong things. Okay, all well and good. But in less than 2 months, what you know about them that we don't know? And I want to paint with a broad brush here, but you might have members that you had a concern with. But you paint with a very broad brush when you make a statement like that, because it tells us a lot about what you think about the team of people that you're working with, that you had to take that measure that early without any significant or serious consultation on the issue and without looking at the fiscal ramifications and also looking at the fact that there are many other people who have worked in the public service for 10, 15, 20 years that you could and should have looked at increasing their salary instead of what was done there. And meanwhile, while you're adding salary to your government ministers, they're boxing the bread out of the mouth of people in Karakou. They're boxing the bread out of the mouth of people all over the island who are working in different capacities. And in some cases, they box the bread, and when the bread fall on the ground and it started dirty, they run and tell the person, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. We make a mistake. We have to take back them letter. Boxing the bread out of people's mouth. Threatening people left, right, and center. That kind of thing. And while you're doing that, you don't even consider helping the people and them that have been in the service for a long time and their salary, admittedly, is a little below par. But you have not said, let's increase theirs without any serious consultation. You increase yours. But we know that you meet the treasury looking healthy because you've said so. But it doesn't mean that you're supposed to go down that road. Because it's looking healthy because of prudent fiscal management by the last administration. If it had not been so, you would have ended up in a situation that when you get there, you wouldn't find anything. You would have find the treasury in the negative. Or you'd have find that you're just a month or 2 months away from bankruptcy. That's what would have happened if you didn't have sound fiscal management by the last administration. Instead, they find the money there and then they come in, oh, NNP wicked. They didn't want to spend the money. They just had the money sit down there and they didn't want to spend the money. And so, no, that's not the case. It was prudent and solid fiscal management on behalf of the New National Party that put Grenada into the place it was at that point in time that you were able to come in and meet the money that you met. Folks, we're going to take a short break and we're going to be right back. You know, it's time It's that time. They say anytime I taking the water break, I must play that one.
Answering yellow, yellow.
From this one public service, everybody will be made permanent. Nobody going home. Take Susu in you. I don't believe in superstition. Something wrong with the transformation. From the 10 boys drink the water. Strange thing happening in Grenada. 3 houses born in Victoria. 2 born in St. David soon after. David Anderson and his brother. We had suicide and murder. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They wrong to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada. Mathematic, Carico, Grenada, and it's that. Juve man in a hold my head and ball. PM player jump and climb a wall. But it's on the then I remember he drank the transformation water. And when I listen to the AG, if they do wicked, well they crazy. If you don't support the agenda, they treat you like fish out of water. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They wrong to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada. Every time I put on my TV, see the minister of MIT. By Django says, Malak, don't panic. The whole government photogenic. If they go to the bathroom to pee, posting it up for the world to see. Taking out pictures like circus clown. On the ballot, boots on the ground. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They wrong to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada. They say that fella never sleep here. Drink the water too and he get glad. Then he take a rake in carrot and he start to rake up them people. Brian and Daisy say the man don't care. He transfer a woman to Limley. They say how she wear a green jersey. So get rid of all those NNP. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They wrong to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada.
Yes, indeed. I've had my water break. Yeah, it's not easy speaking for 2 hours, you know.
What does work and bump like a square?
But let me get at something here. I saw an interview last night that has left me with many more questions than answers. And as I said, on Monday, we're going to have Clips Monday because I've got the interviews and we're going to play what was said and discuss it. I'm very interested. I saw an interview with Senator the Honorable Andre Lewis, Labour representative in the Senate, together with Kalistra Faria at The Narrative. That's on WPG 10. And yeah, you have to give the Jackie, it's WPG 10, one. You don't want me to say that? It's on WPG 10. If you want to go and watch WPG 10, you could watch it too. Right, so I saw the interview with him there. And while Ms. Faria was speaking about the release from the Grenada Port Authority, which spoke to certain acts of malfeasance, certain acts of wrongdoing that are alleged to have taken place at the port that were investigated and that were found to be true, that cost the state of Grenada a lot of money. While that statement was being made, I was surprised to hear Senator Lewis saying that he was surprised at the statement too, because the termination letter of the individual on the port had nothing to do with that. So I'm kind of confused now, because Senator Lewis, who I know with certainty will have the dismissal letter that was issued to the employee at the Grenada Port Authority. He has the letter. He knows what the letter has in it. And he says the letter speaks to lack of performance. It doesn't speak to any exit passes. It doesn't speak to that sort of thing. So that the dismissal letter, and that is what the union was railing about, because they said, and he made several very important points there too, as I said, Clips Monday, right? The first one was that while people are saying now that he's in the pocket of the New National Party, they wasn't saying that when they had the 3 strikes within the last year on the same port. There was some activity there, some union activity on the port around November, December last year. There was one around March this year, and there was another one earlier this year as well. So this is the 4th one in about the last year. For the last 3, the people who calling him NNP lackey and attacking him and saying all kind of negative thing about Senator Lewis, they were praising him as the people's champion and give them anything to bring down the NNP, embarrass them. That's what they were saying. So when they had the port strike last year, when they had the port strike, when they had a walk off the job because of something or the other was done on the port and the workers walk off the job for a couple of days. People couldn't get things coming off the port and so. When that happened, under the NNP administration, Andre was a hero. Now it has happened under the NDC administration, Andre is a zero. You see the hypocrisy of these individuals. Because see, they are busy playing politics. Meanwhile, the union has to play workers' rights. So if their members say, we don't like what happened there, we're striking. You feel the union could come and tell them, we're not striking. Forget that. They have to do what the workers at the facility has said. So this has left me with more questions and answers because it seems as there's some sort of disconnect there. And I would really like to see that letter. Believe me, Senator Lewis, find a way, get a letter to me. I really want to see what the dismissal letter says as opposed to what the Grenada Ports Authority has sent out. Because it seems as though it's 2 different stories taking place. So somebody, somewhere, seems to be attempting a cover-up, and it ain't the unions. But what the unions have done is expose that some sort of cover-up is taking place. Because if that same entity, if that entity has sent a letter to the employee saying, we are dismissing you based on a lack of performance. In other words, you're not working like you're supposed to work, that sort of thing. Or you're not fulfilling your obligations that you've been employed to fulfill. If that is what the letter was sent saying, and then now you have a situation that the Ports Authority has sent out a letter saying much, much more than that, then that is something that needs probing. Media fraternity, are you leaving that just so? We need to probe that. How you end up to the stage now that the reason seems to be different for the employee from one letter from the Grenada Ports Authority to the employee themselves, and they have a different reason in a public letter. Because the public letter makes clear that there was some wrongdoing that employee is accused of. And the letter even goes as far as to say that with the investigation, they found that employee culpable. And I'm worried for the employee. Because one thing I didn't get out of that interview, maybe I need to listen it over, but I didn't get out of that interview whether or not the employee has returned to work in the same capacity, and if they've lost any of their benefits or anything like that. Are they back issuing exit passes again? Have they been re-employed by the organization and placed into a different capacity? Are they still receiving the same salary as they would receive otherwise if they worked for the entire period? Is it now a case that something has been placed on their file? What is the final story in relation to this whole thing? That's what I'm trying to find out. That's what I'm trying to understand here, because I think that interview kind of proves that something is being covered up, something is wrong. And the government could issue as much press release as they want on a Sunday saying that the matter is now. The matter ain't resolved. The matter cannot be resolved. If you have a situation like has been said by the Grenada Ports Authority, the matter cannot be resolved. It is a situation that needs further probing. And you see, that's why they're going to attack, because they don't want us to probe more. They don't want us to ask questions more. They don't want us to delve into that more. They don't want us to go into that more. So they don't want us to ask those questions. But if you get the chance, go onto YouTube and look for that interview. It might be under Carib Update or WPG 10. And listen to that section where Senator Lewis is speaking about the letter that was issued to the employee. So now it seems as though one reason was stated in the letter that was issued to the employee. But in the letter that was issued to the general public, there are other reasons or additional reasons that have been added. So what we need to know is, number one, what is the real reason for the dismissal of that employee? If the employee still remains dismissed, if they are now employed again, and in what capacity? We need to know these things. But it seems as though even Senator Lewis is afraid to speak in relation to it. It seems as though even he's afraid to say what the present status is, because he's speaking about, negotiations are taking place. I don't want to say too much now because you're trying to get all the parties together and that kind of thing. Yeah, but the Grenada Port Authority, with their press release that they issued, already let that, I'm going to say the cat out of the bag, but this more look like a crocus bag of crab. What? And let me get the exact date of that press release by the Grenada Ports Authority. I'm seeing it here. I'm just pulling it up. The Grenada Ports Authority, and it's on the 15th of November. And remember, I continue to read it, right? It says GPA, or Grenada Ports Authority, routinely audits its procedures to ensure compliance and to manage risk. During a recent routine audit, it was discovered that there were some irregularities with the procedure used to authorize exit passes. It was also apparent that the breach in procedure adversely impacted the Grenada Port Authorities and the state of Grenada's revenue policies and procedures. Further down, it says the matter was referred to an investigative government department for a comprehensive probe, following which a report was submitted to the Grenada Ports Authority. Based on the findings, the Grenada Port Authority conducted an internal hearing into the matter with the individual who was central to the breach of procedure, with Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union representation. The Grenada Port Authority is of the view that the actions of the individual were synonymous with gross negligence and was considered a summary offense under the disciplinary provision of the collective bargaining agreement with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Subsequent to the internal hearing, a decision was made to terminate the employment of the individual based on the severity of the transgression pursuant to the summary offense protocols enshrined within the said agreement. Senator Lewis said that the letter that the employee got simply said that they were basically not performing their duties. So there is a difference between what apparently the port, maybe it's two different port authority, I don't know. Or maybe it's two different board of directors, I don't know. But the story isn't aligning. The story here is not aligning. Something more in that mortar than just a pestle. Yeah? Something ain't aligning in that. You understand? Yeah, I ain't trust that one. Let me play a little song there.
Man, but be not afraid, for there is your enemy. A man afraid to speak of what oppresses him, enslave himself to a man just like him. But be not afraid, for will come suddenly. I sing, just as the longest road comes to a bend, so do the evil works of evil men bound to soon to come to an end. I sing.
Yes, indeed, folks. And remember, just in case you have not done so yet, like and share the program. Yeah. And if you've not yet subscribe to our YouTube page, ensure you do so. But when you subscribe, if you look on the right hand side, there's a little bell icon. You click on the bell icon and you could click on the section that says all. So anytime we go live, and remember, we'll be going live with talking points, but not just talking points. We'll also be going live, for instance, during the budget, ensuring that you hear what is being said. Because you see, there seems to be no intention by the government outside of what they have to do to let you hear what's taking place in relation to things like the national budget. So it seems as though now it's left up to us in the opposition to ensure that the message comes out to you. Yeah, we mind letting you hear what the government had to say too. But at least to make sure that you hear from the opposition. So we'll be going live during the budget presentation to let you hear, especially from the opposition side, what is being said. The presentation by the 6 members in the House of Representatives on the opposition side, and also the 3 opposition senators in the Senate when their turn comes, to let you hear what is being said and the analysis of the fiscal measures and the plans and projects that are being put forward by the new administration. Praising where is necessary, correcting where is necessary, and giving advice where is necessary. It's not about just coming and say, well, we don't agree with nothing, and we're supporting this, and we're supporting. No, it's not about that. The New National Party doesn't operate that way. If there are measures that we believe are a continuance of something that we were doing before or adds to the quality of life for Grenadians, and it's something that's doable and reasonable and within the realm of reality, I don't see the New National Party not supporting it. You're going to support it. Because all of us had to live here at the end of the day. Unlike what you used to see some people saying when they were in opposition. Don't give them no ideas. Don't tell them nothing. Leave it so. And then expect that Grenada going to improve. If you have a good idea, give it. If you have a good idea that's going to add to the development of Grenada, why would you decide that you don't want to say nothing unless your government in power? I understand that. So remember to like and share the page. Let's build the program even more. We've already got quite a significant reach. We've got a significant number of people listening. I'm seeing the Virgin Islands. I'm seeing Guyana and Suriname. I don't know who's down there, but Guyana and Suriname, I'm seeing them logging on every night listening to the program. Those of you up in North America, in Brooklyn, in North Carolina, and so on. Those of you in Florida, I'm seeing you logging on. Those of you out there in Canada, those of you in the UK, yeah, in England, and imagine in England, remember, they're about, 5 or 6 hours, about 5 hours in front of us. And remember, that means that it's late in the night, 1, 2 in the morning, all sort of thing. And these folks are staying up and they're listening to Talking Points. And we thank you all so very much for doing that. We're seeing London, we're seeing Birmingham and so on, Reading, seeing all of you popping up in our information that we're getting in relation to where people are listening. Trinidad and Tobago, we're seeing you all as well. Throughout the islands, we're seeing St. Lucia and St. Kitts. We're seeing you all in Jamaica and so on. And we even have listeners over in Africa. Grenadians are all over. So we have listeners who have been tuning in from over in Africa, and in specific in Nigeria and Ivory Coast. We're having people that are tuning in from there. All right. So I've seen Malta, all sorts of things are coming up. So we say thank you so very much for tuning in and finding out what's going on in Grenada at this point in time. And also in contributing, even if you may not be able to call, but you could share the program. You can send a WhatsApp to a friend with the link for the program and let them know Talking Points is on. You can send a Facebook message to your friends and let them know Talking Points is on. When it's 8 o'clock, you send a message to them, remind them we're starting now. Right? So you can send a message, and even after the program, you could still send a message to one of your friends or one of your relatives and so on and let them know, hey, this was tonight's Talking Points program, or that was yesterday's Talking Points program, and so take a listen. So you can share it via WhatsApp, you can share it via Messenger, and we have the Instagram link, we have TikTok and so on that we're doing some work with. You have the website, Talking Points GND. So you have all of that. You can send it out to different people. And I usually post it onto my page as we're starting the program. Sometimes I'm so getting information together that I don't immediately delve into sending out the information as I should. So sometimes you all who are viewing and listening will have to help us in getting the information out. You'll have to help us in ensuring that that information goes far and wide as to the fact that Talking Points is on. All right? Because what we're doing too is we're giving you the talking points. So when you pass by the village shop and they come telling you that it's because NDC is in power that pension is paid, you have the talking points that you can now use to counteract that and correct that level of ignorance. Because you have the talking points, A, that it was the New National Party that secured the money that was just used to pay that. Because remember, in opposition, the now Prime Minister was saying that if they have to borrow, they're going to borrow to pay it. But he didn't have to borrow, he meet the money there. So he didn't have to go to the lending institutions that he say they had so much money like it falling out of it in Grenada. He didn't have to go to them. That the government of Grenada had enough money to make this initial payment of the retroactive component, that they had enough money there to be able to pay that. Right? So you could correct them. Number one, it's not money that the NDC raised. The NDC didn't go to any banks and them and tell them, hey, we need $44.1 million. They had $44.1 million sitting there when they came in. The NNP, had they been in office now, would have done the exact same thing and made the payment right now. Because that is why they had been setting up the pension secretariat and they were taking all the measures that they were taking at the point in time. Because it was a legal obligation. Even if another party had come through and decided that they were contesting the election in June and they won, they had no choice but to pay the pension. So to say that they pay the pension, and like that's some massive achievement because it's a campaign promise and that sort of thing. Yeah, you promise it because you know you don't have a choice. If you formed the government, whether it was NNP, whether it was NDC, the pension had to be paid. There was a legal judgment in relation to that. And you had to pay it. So, it has been paid. And again, I'm glad. All of the people have gotten that money now, and hopefully they'll be putting that money back into the Grenadian economy, doing the little extension on the house, who might want to buy a vehicle and who might want to buy a bus, different things according to the amount of money that they've gotten, or who might just decide that they're going and bless their children and their grandchildren with it. And anybody want to help the program with it, no problem, you know. Yeah. You can help the program with it too, we don't mind. Alright? Yeah, not me. Don't bring it for me. Help the program. Yeah? But not me. So, it is not, what we're giving you here is the talking points that you're able to interact, counteract, and educate other people in relation to the issues. Because see, there are several narratives that have been put out there over the last few years. One is that the NNP was anti-pension. That's not true. Because the New National Party that decided to not go in and fight up that case that was brought against the NDC administration for pension in 2010. That wasn't a case that was brought when the NNP was in power, you know. The pension case was brought in 2010. The NNP was now in office. The NDC was in the second year. So why the NDC at that point in time didn't just say, well, okay, we're not going to contest this. We're not going to go through all of that. Let me just forget this and just pay the pension. They didn't do that. They contested it. So you ended up with a situation that was tied up in the courts. Now the unions, meeting with the New National Party as they do, because the unions, contrary to what you heard the Prime Minister saying recently, the unions always meet with opposition parties as well as government. I know that for a fact, that the unions, the trade unions, they make sure and they hold meetings with the ruling party and they hold meetings with the opposition party. Because in one of those meetings, prior to the elections of 2013, the unions met with the NNP opposition and said to them, listen, what we request of you is one, you remove personal income tax from severance pay. That was a main issue because you had people that worked for years, they got severance, and due to the volume of severance they got, when they get hit with the personal income tax, they were losing thousands of dollars one lash. So they made the New National Party promise that one of the first measures you're going to take is you're going to remove personal income tax from severance pay. So said, so done. The NNP agreed to do it, and they did it on coming into office in 2013. They also asked the NNP not to pursue further the case with Hermelin Armstrong. In other words, don't challenge it. Again, the NNP did what the unions asked them, and there were several other measures there that are slipping me right now that came out of that meeting as part of an agreement, right? That if you form the government, we are requesting of you these things. And the New National Party did each and every one of them. And then they give the impression that the NNP didn't want to pay pension. It's not don't want to pay pension. The issue was the calculation that would be used, whether it would be the 1958 calculation of when you only had 400 or 500 people in the public service in Grenada, or whether you're going to use a new calculation using the contributory pension, the NIS, and adding something to that to bring it up to a reasonable level, rather than reinstituting the 1958 pension for all category of workers and so. And then you end up in a situation where you cannot pay, not only pension, you know, you could end up in a situation where you can't pay pensions and you can't pay salaries either. And there have been countries in the region that end up in similar situations. There have been countries further afield that end up, ask Greece what happened with them. You've had situations where the pension payments have crippled economies. And no one is saying that that would happen immediately. No. We're saying that the possibility is in the future, with the volume of people that you have in the public service now, if you continue with the 1958 calculation of pensions and gratuities, you will end up in an untenable situation in the future because, remember, it's non-contributory. In other words, you get your full salary at the end of the month minus your NIS. So you have money that goes into the NIS for your NIS pension. But no money comes out of your salary towards the 1958 pension. That's a pension that government has to find all the money and pay. So it is simply saying that what the NNP was saying is that, hey, we need to talk with you, the unions, in relation to it. We cannot go far into the future with the 1958 Act. So the unions would have to speak with their membership, and the government would put forward its position in relation to it, and then some sort of agreement has to be sought in relation to it, because there is the constitutional right to pension of people meeting a specific criteria. There's the 1958 Act in relation to pension. And then there's the NIS Act that dates back to 1983. And I believe that it was, there's a word that he used for it. But it was brought into force, I believe, as of 1985, I think is the official time that it was brought into force. And then understanding, because another impression that's being given out there is that it was the NNP that took away pension from people. That's not the case. The revolution looked at exactly what this government is saying, look at now. The fact that you have increasing numbers of people in the public service who are going to be qualifying for pension, and if it's a case that the government has to find the money without anybody contributing to it, because even if you contribute $10 and everybody contribute 10, it means you might have $100,000 at the end of the month that you could take now and you could place in a fixed deposit somewhere, so that by the time these people become pensionable age, you have multiplied their $10 into 10,000, and you're able to give them that 10,000 as a gratuity payment, or you're able to give them payments on a monthly basis out of that money and the monies of others who have put money in. So you have a proper revolving scheme. So that's what the revolution looked at it, and they said, but wait, we have increasing number of people coming here. We need to have something that people contribute towards. It provides a source of income so that we could take that now and we could offer sick benefit, we could offer funeral grant, we could offer maternity leave pay and that sort of thing, and paternity pay, and we could offer all of that. So that we can offer that. We could even offer loans for people who want to build homes, vehicle loans, and that sort of thing. That we could offer that through the NIS by taking the money that we're getting as contributions and reinvesting it. So you take that money and you reinvest it. Government is floating some treasury bills, or another government regionally is floating some treasury bills, so that you purchase that. Because when you purchase it, you know that it's going to mature within a certain space of time, and that if you spend $1 million on it, you might get back 1.25 or even $1.5 million according to the percentage. So that you're increasing the money. You take the money and you invest it otherwise, and you increase it. That's what the revolution was trying to do. But the problem is that when that was done, it disenfranchised people who constitutionally ought to have been receiving their pension. And also, according to the courts now, if a person was within the public service at a point in time that you had the 1958 Act, you cannot now bring a law that reduces anything they're getting. If they was getting 55% of the final salary, you cannot now bring a law after the person is already confirmed and working in the government service. You cannot bring a law that says instead of 55%, we're going to give you 40%. The only law you could bring is to give them the same amount or to give them more. But you cannot reduce the benefits that that person is getting once they were already within the service. If you put the law in place, it would be for anybody that comes into that service after the date that that law is enacted. Once the GG signed and that law is enacted, then anybody that comes in after that date, then that law, which may give a 40% instead of 55%, anybody coming in after that date, then those people are caught up in that. But anybody before, you have to use the 1958 Act. And this is the situation that this government has found itself in. And the government of Grenada, where is NNP or NDC government? That's the situation. That anybody who was within the service at the point in time of the 1958 Act, and those people who qualify according to what the law says. In other words, you have to make a certain amount of time, or you have to be in a permanent position, a contracted worker and that sort of thing. That these people you can't put a law in place now to give these people less than they're supposed to get. You could put one to get them more. You could put one to get them the same thing, but you cannot reduce the benefits that they have to get. But they wouldn't explain that to you. It's just one nonsensical statement. Oh, we Prime Minister come and he pay the pension. That's a nonsensical statement that lacks any intellectual integrity. it is a situation that you have to look at, because there are implications down the road that they're not speaking about when it comes to that pension issue. Serious implications down the road. Because you have more and more people, as I said, there are many people, police officers, there are nurses, district nurses, etc., even teachers, who already make the requisite number of years, They could decide they're calling it quits right now. They wouldn't receive a monthly pension because they are not of the pensionable age. But they can take a gratuity, which is like an upfront payment. They could take the gratuity now, and then when they get to the age of pension, they receive the reduced pension payment. So if they were supposed to get $1,000, they might get a $500, or they might get a $600, because they take $400 from every month for 10 years. They take that up front. Right? So you all understand this thing, but they're not explaining that to you. All they're jumping up and says, we Prime Minister pay the pension, we Prime Minister pay the pension. No. Understand what is taking place. I even heard them saying, oh, the NNP come in and they get themselves a pension. You're talking about the 1984 NNP, The only person from that NNP still around is Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, as in still around in politics. Mr. Tillman Thomas was part of that cabinet. Mr. Francis Alexis was part of that cabinet that gave parliamentarians pension. And the then Prime Minister, Herbert Blaise, thinking on the issue was the same as the present Prime Minister when he come and he gave his people $2,000. He was saying that, look, this is to avoid people having to do wrong things, so that when they leave politics, they have to put money aside then illegally for when they leave politics. That is what he was saying back then. Right? And you're hearing the present Prime Minister saying the same thing now. And the idea behind that, because that pension for parliamentarians dates back to 1986, I think. And if the NDC activists who were talking about it before have a problem with it, then they should know that the former NDC parliamentarians who've made their 2 terms, I hear them saying they ain't taking it. And they could take it at, I believe, the age of 55. Which I don't think it's any of them that made the 2 terms that under the age of 55 right now. They asked them if they're taking it, if they're getting the pension, the parliamentarians' pension. But they were talking against it and trying to give the impression that it was the NNP of 2013 to 2022 that did that. No, that's back when you had people like, I believe you'd have Kenny Lal Singh. You'd have had Dr. Francis Alexis. You'd have had Mr. Aline Walker. You'd have had, quite a few of the older politicians were in that 1984 to 1986 period there, were part of the cabinet when that was done. So to give the impression is the 2013, and come on, the law is there. Anybody could go and check it and see what the law is dated to. But they tried to give the impression that it was this NNP that come in and they just give themselves a pension and they don't care about nobody else's pension. Them pension secure and I had none to get. That again is a false statement. If you have been paying the NIS and you've made 500 weekly contributions, let me say that again. If you've been paying, you've been working, and you have made 500 contributions to the National Insurance Scheme, you have a pension to get. It's not like you have no pension. You could say that you don't like the quantum of the pension. You don't like the amount of money that you're getting from the NIS. You can say that. But you can't say that you had no pension to get. If you have been paying the NIS, and as far as I know, it's illegal not to be paying the NIS. And it has been illegal since the NIS has been created to be not paying the NIS. So, you can't say that you have no pension to get. You make your 500 weekly payments. So they count the number of weeks that you have worked and you paid for. And then when you hit the age, which is considered the pensionable age, which at this time is 60. When you get to 60, you can then go to the NIS and you do your documentation, whatever. You start receiving your pension. But I see a bunch of people, oh, they're getting the pension and we are none to get. That is not true. You had a pension. You just did not like the quantum of the pension or the amount of money that you were getting under the pension. So as such, you wanted to receive your pension under the 1958 Act. Say that. But then we have a lot of people who seem to have gotten taken into the trap that was set by the ruling party of when they were in opposition of we're going to make sure you get your pension. But I was so embarrassed for them when I saw a lady stand up there and the lady doesn't qualify because they didn't explain. They just left a lot of loopholes. It's like when the Prime Minister come and say, oh, we give Faith program $6 million and doesn't explain Faith had 300 plus people working at least $800 a month over 24 months. So you can account for that $6 million. So it's the same kind of loophole that they leave when they talk about pension. They just speak about pension in general. And now you have the Prime Minister coming back to say that, hey, we're going to have discussions out there with different categories of people in relation to this pension thing. The people who are not in the public service, the people who are contracted workers, so they're not under the Public Service Commission. These people who are contracted workers, well, basically everybody who works within the government service, whether contract or not, you're supposed to follow the rules of the Public Service Commission. But the people who were not appointed by the Public Service Commission and are contracted workers, and some people who are on the quote-unquote, what has been called the unestablished staff, right? How do those people receive more than just the NIS pension? How do they receive more benefits? And what mechanism can be put in place to ensure that that pension is paid and that the monies that are needed to pay that pension, that you start generating, investing, and growing that money from now? Because what the NIS is doing is similar to what a bank does. You go to a bank and you put your $10,000 inside there, or you put your $50 or whatever you put inside there. The bank doesn't just leave your $50 there and give you back when you come for it, The bank take your $50 together with my $3, together with somebody else $1 million. They take all that, put it together, and it invested somewhere. Or it loan it out. So you take my $50 and somebody go to buy a vehicle and they check, they say, okay, this person is in good financial standing. From our investigation, we believe that this person will be able to pay back that $20,000 we're going to give them. So we are going to give a loan to that person, and the person will repay not $20,000, but they repay that $20,000 plus interest. So they've taken that $50 from me, they take money from different people and they have lent it out with the intention that when they get it out back, they're going to take that 20 and make it into 30. Or they might even make it into 35 according to the interest rate and according to different things. And they have to safeguard the bank. So that's why they put things like security deposits. That's why they put things like, for instance, insurance and all of that. Because they have to ensure that that $50 that you put in the bank is well protected. That when the time comes for you to get your $50, that you could get your $50. Right? And it might even be 50 because you have interest that you're gaining on it. So it might be 51 by the time you go. But that at least that you could get what you have inside there plus interest. And that's how the banks operate. That is similar to how the NIS operates. And that is what has to be considered now if you're talking about reformation of the pension issue. And making pensionable categories of workers who are now under the 1958 Act, not pensionable under that Act, but only pensionable under the NIS Act. But they don't want you to know this. They wouldn't explain all of these things to you. Right? So simply saying you pay the pension is one thing. But how do you get more money to pay? Or is it going to be a situation that the government of Grenada has to generate, be it 20, be it $30 million every month to pay pensions either now or in the future in a way that they don't have that money sitting in a fund generating interest and so on so that they could do other things or that they could maintain it, to sure that they don't end up running low a month and you can't make your payments. That's the kind of thing that they should be talking about instead of just jumping about we pay the pension and they vex. Who vex? No, understand what is involved. That's all we're saying. Understand what is involved. Because there are many people who are working with statutory bodies on a contract. They come, they get a contract, you work for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, you get another contract, you work for 2 years. You get a contract and you work, and you continue getting contracts and you renew your contract and you work and that kind of thing. So you qualify for your NIS pension. So you'll get a little pension under NIS and the funeral grant and all the other things that they have under the NIS. And even if you have not made your 500 weekly contributions, you still qualify for a little something from the NIS. No, you wouldn't get a monthly pension, but at least there's a grant that you get. There's a payment that you get, even if you haven't made your 500 weekly contributions. There's a further discussion because I think it has taken place about people who have worked in other jurisdictions and how their contributions to the NIS schemes in those jurisdictions could be co-joined with them. For instance, let's say you work in Canada for 10 years and then you come and you pay into an NIS over there. Then you come to Grenada and you work for another 20 years. How do you work it out between the two? All of that needs to be discussed. It's not just a simple matter of we pay the pension or they pay the pension. There are different aspects to it that you need to look at and that you need to consider. Many different aspects of it that you need to think about and you need to consider. So when we're looking at this pension issue, it's much deeper than just find the money and pay them. It is making sure that you have a revolving fund. That if you have $10 million now, that you know that this time next year you could grow that 10 million to 15. And that in 2 years from now you could grow it to 30. And that after that you could grow it to 60. But that you continue to grow whatever money is coming in. But remember, under the 1958 Act and that pension, there's no money coming in. That is money government just have to find and pay on a monthly basis outside of this retroactive payments and the as of yet unpaid interest. This is money that the government just have to find and pay. So all of this needs to be discussed. All of this needs to be clarified and cleared up. Yeah? All of this needs to be clarified. All of this needs to be cleared up so that you could understand what it involves when we're speaking about pension and gratuity payments. And listen, all I'm saying now is not something that is just being said now, These are things that we've said before. But because there was so much noise surrounding the issue, and the unions would make noise because the unions want what they consider to be the best deal for their workers. You can't be upset with the unions for trying to do their job. The unions doing their job. So they want what they consider to be the best for their workers. The government has a responsibility. The government has a responsibility to do what is best for the workers and the country. So while the union would like to see each worker get $1 million and go home, the union they'd be jumping up in the sky for that. Is the country able to pay each worker $1 million? Is it sustainable to pay each worker $1 million? The unions would like it and they would fight for it because they know they might fight for $1 million, they might fall half and get 500,000. When the real intention was really to get 200,000. Right? That's negotiation. This is union tactics. So the unions doing what they're supposed to do. They don't necessarily have to care about what you think and what I think and that kind of thing. They have to negotiate and try to get the best deal. And the government has to do the same. So that is what the last government was doing, trying to get the best deal for you, the Grenadian people. And when they do it, some people saying they're wicked. Oh, they don't want to pay the pension, they'll never pay the pension. That's nonsense. So how they find the money to pay the pension then? Where do you think they get it from? It's the last government that made sure what had to be done was done in the manner that it had to be done. All right, folks, we're into our final few minutes of tonight's program. Let me see. I want to change my song for a little while. Let me see if I could find an old song here. Nice.
Advice to you is to be what you want to be, and that's how it's gonna be. Straight? Well, I am an entertainer who always represent Grenada. I pledge allegiance unto my flag and to the country for which it stands. But certain things I see going on, making me not proud to be Grenadian. Sometimes I feel like if I ain't strong, I would have left Grenada long. What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong? Cause the way they treating artists today, that making we want to run away. Be strong, tell me be strong. I could have gone and live anyway, but it's Grenada where I choose to stay. Be strong, tell me be strong. So tell all of my fans don't worry about me, cause I live soca music to drive Maxi.
Yeah, that's an oldie and a goldie, eh?
So I live soca music to drive Maxi.
Of course, yeah. So understand the pension issue from those directions. Understand that there are serious financial implications. And when you heard Senator the Honorable Claudette Josephs stand up in the Senate and start to say similar to what I'm saying right now, you understand that realization or acceptance of what is facing their government just hit them. It was okay to be in opposition and saying, oh, they're wicked, they just wouldn't pay the pension. But now realization has hit them that, hey, we're making this payment now, 44.1 million. But by this time next year, we're not sure if we could pay the pensions and salaries, Because the CBI program might be on the way out, and we may not be making as much money as we're making now in the CBI program. So that's why they're trying to back up the amount of money they're making in the CBI program now. So even before they had a cabinet, they reopened applications in the CBI program that had been closed by the new National Party administration. They reopened applications for people from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. Those individuals had been denied applications for Grenadian passports under the CBI program. Under the NDC administration, it has been reopened, and the New York Post says so. I saw a local publication trying to say that's the NNP that do it. NNP wasn't in power in July. What do you mean the NNP that go and put these people back onto the list of people that could apply under the CBI program? It was not the new National Party in power in July. The new National Party came out of power in June. It was another government in power. As I said, they didn't even have a cabinet yet. They were still in the process of putting together a cabinet, but they found enough time to make sure that Russians and so could apply under the CBI, because you had a set of them with millions of dollars out there that really was trying to get out of Russia. So Dominica keep them blocked, right? All the other countries kept them blocked, but Grenada for some reason has decided that they're going to put those people back under the program. And has had them there, to the point now that the New York Post has put out that article that's, quote unquote, kind of embarrassing to Grenada in relation to the CBI and the fact that Russians running here to get away from the war over there. But that is what's taking place. That's the reality. Had that happened under the NNP, we would not get rest. But mutitis takes some of them now. If that had happened under the NNP, boy, radio talk show. They were calling special press conference. You've seen it on TV. You've seen it on the internet every time you turn. Them wicked NNP, they're going to selling passport for Russian. And the most thing is that I remember, and you should remember, if you're old enough, that the NDC has always been vehemently against the sale of passports in any CBI program. I remember former Prime Minister, Mr. Tillman Thomas, speaking on that issue on several occasions. I ain't hear you talking on it now. I ain't see you coming. Let it talk about somebody have money in an account. You go see come and talk. And we know about money in account, Mr. Tillman Thomas. And? Yeah. If they talk about that kind of thing, you see come in and talk. But I want to hear what he has to say about his philosophy on what the NDC is doing right now when it comes to CBI. And in particular, what his NDC party is doing when it comes to CBI and allowing Russian oligarchs and so on to become part of the entire thing. What does he have to say in relation to that? That Ukrainians who may not be able to go back in Ukraine because they've sided with the Russians and they are under sanctions in their own country, but can apply for a Grenadian passport. Or Belarusians, from people from Belarus, who have aligned themselves with Russia and are therefore under sanction as well, or may become under sanction if they're not under sanction now, and may be found to be holding Grenadian passports when they are placed under sanction. Don't be surprised that you end up with a situation where someone ends up with a Grenadian passport from since this has been reestablished, and you end up hearing that that person is accused of war crimes. So somebody holding a Grenadian passport accused of war crimes end up in The Hague, but they're holding a Grenadian passport. Mr. Tillman Thomas, I know you like to talk on things. I ain't hear you talking on that one. I ain't hear you talking about that possibility. Let's hear you on that, man. Come out and talk, don't afraid. Let's hear you on that one. Because it seems as though, all of a sudden, right is wrong and wrong is right, depending on who in power. Because you're hearing the constant thing, well, NNP used to do that and NNP used to do worse than that. That's what you're hearing. NNP used to do that. Yeah, I'm making sure that I have everything organized here. Nice? Yeah. That it seems as though it depends on whether you're in the NNP camp or your NDC camp. If you do certain things and you're in the NNP camp, they do have a problem. If you're in the NDC camp and you do certain things, then they do have a problem. So it depends on which camp you're in, whether something is right or something is wrong. Folks, that's basically all the time we have tonight for Talking Points. It's been wonderful being here with you. And whatever you say, whatever you do it safe and secure. We want to be speaking to and with you and not about you. We'll be joining you tomorrow night for more Talking Points. We're ending off the week with a bang. So more Talking Points tomorrow night. My name is Sheldon Scott. I am heading out of here. And we're playing the road march for the Christmas man here because people want to hear it again. I'm heading out of here. Love each and every one of you. I am out.
I don't believe in superstition. Something wrong with the transformation. From the 10 boys drink the water. Strengthening happening in Grenada. 3 houses born in Victoria. 2 born in St. David soon after. David Anderson and his brother. We had suicide and murder. Who tell them drink the water? The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, like they put a spell on Grenada. They wrong to drink the water. The transformation water. From the time they drink the water, they start to reverse Grenada.